Hello, my people. Thank you so much for being here on a Thursday afternoon. If you're in the Portland, Oregon area, you're just getting ready to hunker down in your bunker like me with the snow coming. So, welcome to winter. It's tough to come back from sunny Mazatlan, let me tell you. Before I get started, I got to thank my sponsors, 5 Star Guitars. 5 Star Guitars is based in Oregon, which means there's no sales tax. So not only will you get great deals on guitars and accessories and lessons, but if you go to this link right here, go to 5starguitars.com/all access live, you'll see that there's a 15% promo code here if you use all access 15. So save some money because there's no sales tax, get yourself some lessons, get some gear, and let them know that I sent you because they've supported me from the beginning. I also want to thank Audix Microphones for these wonderful microphones and these headphones, which were supplied by 5 Star Guitars, but they're also based in Beaverton, Oregon, so there's no sales tax. If you go to audixusa.com and you're an aspiring musician wanting to be a rock star like my next guest, you can get good gear from Audix. Now, before we get started, I want to do two things. If you're looking at this show from someplace else other than YouTube, I want you to go to youtube.com/all access live with Kevin Rankin, and I want you to subscribe. If you're already here, hit the subscribe link and then the little bell to be notified because I'm at 950 subscribers. When I get to 1,000, I'm going to have a cool giveaway where I've got a whole bunch of 80s stuff, including a Flock of Seagulls stuff. So t-shirts, drumsticks, backstage passes from previous tours, and then you'll get to host an episode of All Access Live with a Flock of Seagulls. So you'll have all 4 of us members on camera and you get to interview us. So that's the giveaway. At 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to pick a random winner. So help me get there. I'm only 50 away. I hope to be there by tomorrow. So subscribe, and then you'll get to look at this archive of my next guest. Charlie WADHAMS is calling us from his music barn in Northern California. I'm going to bring him on now. Please welcome my buddy, Charlie WADHAMS. How are you, buddy?
That's what it sounds like at my shows.
That's only right now because it's during the pandemic and there's nobody at a live show, right? So
yeah,
I've seen your shows, man. You have a good draw.
Yeah, man. How you doing?
I'm so good, man. I'm glad to see you here. I miss your face in person, you know. I rarely
your cheeks,
and you'd be getting hugs right now if we were around each other. Guess who? I told you, Claudia Odenthal from Germany. She's the first person to show up here in the chat. So, Claudia, I'm glad to see you. Thank you for being here.
Yeah,
Claudia, Charlie, Claudia. Man, okay. So I'm going to tell people that may not know. I'm sure everybody that's on this chat already knows who Charlie WADHAMS is, but I got to meet you for the first time. I'll set this up. My very first gig with Animotion, October 28th, 2002. I got a gig in Fresno, California with your dad, Bill WADHAMS, and we came down to Fresno. We played a show on my 32nd birthday. Is that right? And I was so excited because I love the band, but I was blown away by the opening act called Rex Aquarium, which featured you and your brother, Chris, and your drummer, this killer trio. So tell me a little bit about from those days, because was that band based in Fresno or is that an LA band?
No, we were an LA band. That was my first band that I was the front man of. I had played drums in a couple bands in LA, but that was me flapping my wings for the first time. And so I was working out a lot of kinks, but I was really going for it. I was really excited to have my brother with me. He was my right-hand man. We used to argue a lot, but as brothers do, but I loved him just the same. He was sort of the rock in the band for me. And then I was lucky enough to get the drummer who used to be the drummer of Squirrel Nut Zippers,
right,
a guy named Chris Phillips. He happened to be in LA and was bandless at the time. And he said to me, we were out having drinks one night and he said, "Hey, I'm looking to be in about 10 rock and roll bands." And I said, "Well, you could start by being in mine." And I couldn't believe he agreed to do it, but that was my first band. So it was very fun for a few years, and we put out a couple albums.
Are they available if you go on Spotify, Apple Music, all those places? You can get the Rex Aquarium records.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, you can actually go to this link over here under Charlie's beautiful face and go to charliewadhams.com. You've got old and new stuff there, right? So people can find your newest record that came out last year.
Yeah.
And some other stuff that you've produced as well for people.
Yeah. I've done a few albums and a few EPs and singles and things. And then I've done a couple little side projects. Like I did an EP, 5-song EP with a girl named Priscilla Ahn, which is a very, very chill, beautiful little 5-song album. That was a lot of fun. You know, you mentioned Animotion a second ago, and I just wanted to tell the audience how I decided that I wanted to be a musician.
Please. Yeah, let's go back to that.
It was, you know, when I was about 7 years old, my dad had this breakout hit with his band. And as a kid, of course, that was very exciting, you know, driving to school and hearing Dad come on K-Rock, the big rock station in Los Angeles. And then there was this one moment where I got to go see him play for the first time. And, you know, big audience. And me and my brother were sitting on the side of the stage watching it all go down. And during the song that was their hit, Obsession, he kind of like waved, come on, you know, guys, come on out on the stage. And so I went out, and he was like putting the microphone down to my mouth to sing the chorus and stuff. And I saw just all those faces out there. And I was like, oh my God. Even at that age, I was like, I got to do this.
You knew then?
Yeah. I mean, I toyed with the idea of being a doctor and a lawyer and an actor and a this and a that. But eventually, by the time I was 12, I knew I wanted to. When I was 12, I wanted to be John Bonham from Led Zeppelin. I thought I was going to be the best drummer that ever lived. And then I quickly realized that was going to be a lot of work. And I started wanting to write love songs too. So I kind of switched over to guitar. So that's sort of like a short version of my journey.
You know, I didn't know about that.
Yeah. I mean, there's more to it. You know, like I took a little poetry class when I was about 12 and started exploring with writing poetry / lyrics, and started discovering lots of classic rock and wanting to be, you know, some of those guys, fantasizing about being those guys.
Like so which guys? Who would you feel like were an influence?
Like Jim Morrison, you know, Jim Morrison and before I discovered alcohol and drugs and things like that. Not that I really got too deep into drugs, but I, for the most part, stayed away from drugs. But, you know, it fell in my lap a couple times, and I was like, what's this?
Right. Yeah.
But before I had any of that, I had rock and roll, and that was how I trip out.
Yeah.
Like, oh, shit, dude. You know, Led Zeppelin, Dazed and Confused, just like crazy. Yeah. I was just getting high off of that shit. So I knew I had to do that. I just didn't know if I was ever going to be any good. As I'm sure anybody starting off has that doubt. Like, I feel like I could be good, but I don't know. And until you start doing it, and sometimes you got to write like 10 or 20 or 100 crappy ass songs before you get to one where you're like, oh shit, maybe I could do something good. You know,
where do you feel like the first turning point was where you thought, oh, you know what, I'm really proud of what I put out?
Oh, you know, when I was doing my first band, Rex Aquarium, I was proud of my stuff, but I knew there were some weaknesses in my abilities and my songwriting. I was sort of experimenting and exploring myself, and I still am, you know.
Sure.
I always doubt whether I'm any good. I'm like, every new song I write, I'm like, is this total shit?
Yeah.
Every single song, almost every song.
You're your own worst critic.
Yeah.
I'm glad to know that, because when I hear your stuff, I'm not kissing your ass because you're here. I mean, you know, I think your stuff is brilliant, and I've watched it progress, and I've seen you in a bunch of different iterations too. And you know, people that have watched know that you've got a gift. Not being a songwriter myself, I'm always amazed by somebody that could have a melody in their head, but also put something that is it's intriguing, you know, to hear lyrically. That I think there's depth in your writing, and there has been since early on. You know, you've got more wisdom and depth at a younger age, you know, than I would expect. But I love it, and I think when you question yourself, or you kind of you know, you kind of doubt the magnitude of what you've written as being, you know, quality. I guess it's just humility that shows through, you know. So I'm glad.
I try when I'm writing, I try not to think about people listening, you know, or is this going to be good to somebody else?
Okay.
I'm only trying to think, does this sound good to me? You know,
Yeah.
does this feel honest? Does this feel like it's moving me emotionally, or just does it sound fucking cool? You know?
Yeah, right. Well, you know, you mentioned honest, right? So if there's an authenticity in your writing,
oh yeah.
Is it, you know, and pardon my ignorance about this, do you kind of like stack up lyrically? Do you say, you know, is this something that I truly believe, or is this what I'm writing to sound catchy?
Well, I used to see, that's the thing with my first band, Rex Aquarium. I was trying to figure out what cool lyrics were.
Okay.
You know, I was trying to be cool with my lyrics. I was trying to think, you know, there are bands, so many bands that I thought, man, they have the coolest lyrics, the coolest songs. And it could be anything from like some Joy Division or late 70s punky thing, Talking Heads or something, to a classic rock, or even to like a Cat Stevens type guy, a singer-songwriter, you know, or like some James Taylor, you know, the one about the plane crash or whatever it is. I forget the name, but, you know, when you hear a good song, you know it, at least for you. I mean, if you like it, it's fucking great. And I was trying to figure out why that is. What makes a good song? And at some point I decided a lot of it has to do with the songwriter being honest with himself. Not trying to like falsify or bullshit some, you know, front about how cool they are or something like, yeah, babe, I just smoke cigarettes and drink, you know, from the moment I wake up in the morning, and that's what I'm going to talk about. Yeah, man. You know.
Can you spot that in other writers? Can you tell if what they're writing is not truly authentic?
It's hard to tell sometimes. You know, even today, when I hear Jim Morrison sing, I woke up this morning and drank myself a beer or whatever, you know, I'm like, yes, he did. He did.
You know that for sure.
And a lot of days I feel like doing that too, but I don't, because I mean, I've woken up and had beer.
Right.
But most days I try to get shit done before I have my beer, you know?
Yeah. And you're a father modeling good behavior now, right? So
yeah.
Yeah.
But one other thing I was going to say is, after, you know, I had all these doubts when I was in my first band songwriting, and I was trying to hide behind lyrics. You know, sometimes I wouldn't want people to hear all the lyrics. I'd hide behind loud guitars, and if somebody started going, what does that lyric mean? I'd be like, I don't know.
Really? Okay.
It just came out of me.
Right. Not that it rhymed. Did it have to rhyme?
A lot of times I would try to find a rhyme of some kind. But sometimes I honestly didn't know what the hell I was talking about. I just had these, it felt like a story, or maybe it was saying something, but I didn't know what.
Okay.
So anyway, then when I started my solo career, I said to myself, I need to write songs that I could just be me and a guitar around a campfire and not be embarrassed, and be proud enough of my stuff that I could just play it for grandma and, you know, whoever else is sitting there, and feel confident about it. So that was my like foundation for the songwriting from that point.
Okay. You mentioned grandma. I'm curious to know, because as somebody who grew up in Dad's shadow, did you feel like you had to be able to play something for Dad and have Dad be proud?
Well, my dad was always somebody that he's one of the first people I would send new songs to. Whenever I recorded like a demo, I would send. Yeah. And part of me wanted the approval of Dad. and admiration. You know,
Yeah.
I will admit that I used to have like this little group of close friends that anytime I had something new, I'd just be like, oh, I got to send it to these 5 or 6 people.
Were they musicians?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But these days I try not to get drunk and send it out to, you know, anytime I have a new song, send it out to like 10 people, because I'd rather just wait till the thing is polished and totally done. Because sometimes I'll send out things premature. You know, it's like I haven't even written a bridge or the chorus isn't done. And then people go, interesting, nice song.
Yeah.
But they might not have the full vision that I have for the song, and it's not done yet. It's still a turd that has to be polished a little bit. So
there's a little waiting game for you.
Yeah.
Well, you know, conversely, have you had friends that have sent you some stuff and you've had to be brutally honest and sort of check them?
That's a really, really tricky thing.
Yeah.
You know, being in LA, there are lots of bands, and I had lots of friends playing, and I was going out to see music all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. And, you know, I don't love everybody's music,
Right.
but you know what I did? I would always try to find something positive in the music, you know, something strong there that I could grab onto. And I did like a lot of their bands. I liked a lot of the singer-songwriters and, you know, players. I liked them all for their unique talents. Some of them weren't the best drummer or the best guitar player or the best songwriter, but, you know, I could see what they're trying to do. And I never wanted anybody to fail or like quit music or something. Even if it's like what I consider to be the worst dog shit band in LA, I wanted to hear every single album they make. And I want them to keep making albums, because eventually they'll get better and better, hopefully.
Literally polish a turd. Yeah.
So I used to actually get sometimes the most inspired when I would see a band that I thought was horrible.
Because you didn't want to do that?
Yeah, and oftentimes there would be bands that I thought was just so bad. Well, I shouldn't say oftentimes, but once in a while there would be a band that was so bad. And it just made me go, oh my God, and they've got a huge crowd and everybody's into it. And I'm like, holy shit, I'm going to go home and write a song 10 times better than this.
Nice. Yeah.
It would just put a fire under my butt, because I think, oh shit, have I been lazy this week? I need to write like 10 more songs.
Did you write 10 songs in a week?
No. I mean,
I was going to say.
No, but that would be my, you know, fire under my ass.
Yeah.
I don't want to come off as cocky and all that kind of thing, but it, you know, friendly inspiration. I don't want to say competition, but you know, it's nice to have friends playing music so you can feed off each other and see what the other guy's doing and try to go, oh shit, he's kicking ass. I better start upping my game a little bit. You know, there's all kinds of little things like that.
You had, speaking of that, because you mentioned all these friends, I know that I've seen you in different iterations with your band had been playing with other friends of yours. So you guys would kind of piggyback, and sometimes you take turns opening for each other. Sometimes you would like do shows, you know, traveling shows together. It's kind of a cool thing if you've got somebody that is compatible, not exactly stylistically just like you, but I think I've seen you with bands that I thought, wow, that's a really good pairing, you know? And that's a really cool opportunity. If one of those bands doesn't have a draw, for you to bring them into your shows where you've got an audience, right?
Yeah.
And have there been any opportunities for you to go out as a support for some, like say, national act that was a really good leg up for you?
I had a couple opportunities where I went out either solo or as a duo or trio, kind of real stripped down. Most of the opportunities to play with bigger acts, they wanted me to be a real stripped down thing, because I used to play with like a full band, 4 or 5 guys behind me. But like one of the acts was a band called The Bird and the Bee, which is a duo. And at some point they added more members, but they used to just play as a duo. So they wanted a solo act to open for them. And so I went around parts of the United States opening up for them. And that was so scary. It was so scary to be in front of tons of people and just me and a guitar. You know,
was it like, because I mean, obviously stage fright doesn't get you. You've been fine being in front of a lot of people, but was it that you didn't have the accompaniment of an entire ensemble to kind of lean on?
Yeah, and I was still kind of fresh as a solo artist. So standing up there by myself with no drums, you know, having a drummer behind you and a bass player and this and that, it's really like a shield or a curtain that protects you in case you start messing up. You know, it's like, take it away, boys.
Yeah, or you can blame it on the drummer always, right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah. At some point, my band actually said to me that, you know, I'm a okay rhythm guitar player, but my band said, you know, Charlie, maybe put down the guitar. We got this. And not in a dick kind of way, but in a friendly kind of way, because they were all much better musicians than me. And I was actually happy to put down the guitar, but it was very scary at first to have this, which was like my clothing, be standing up on stage with my pants down, basically. Right. And have to figure out how to do some Mick Jagger moves or something.
I was picturing Morrison moves, right?
Yeah, Morrison.
yeah.
We're like,
yeah. You know who had those moves down, and somebody that you just reminded me, somebody that spoke so highly of you, and had her own ensemble that seemed to be probably okay on her own. Tell me your Juliette Lewis connection.
I don't really know her that well. I've known, I knew her when I was in my early 20s because I used to play drums in this band called The Unknowns. Well, actually, it went through a few band names. There was a band from the 80s called The Unknowns, and we didn't know that. We found out one night when we played a show, and some guy drove all the way up from San Diego to LA, and he said, "Is this the 80s Bruce Joyner Unknowns?" And we were like,
oh, no.
No. And he's like, "I just drove all the way from, you know."
Oh, man.
But anyway, the singer of that band, one of the two singers, Chris, he started dating her. And so that's how I met her. And, you know, we hung out a few times. She was cool.
Very cool.
They only dated for maybe a year or something, but we used to, I think we played a couple gigs with her or something. I know we played one of her birthday parties, and then at some point I even auditioned to play drums in her band.
That's right. Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, she, you know, we have a sort of a loose connection, but I mean, like a small connection, but yeah, she's cool.
She was, her show blew my mind, right? Because I mean, of course, knew her acting, loved her acting, but the show rocked, opening for the Pretenders, and then went back and talked to her a bit with your pop. And
oh yeah, I saw one of those shows, the opening for the Pretenders, man.
Oh, so much energy. She was insane on stage. You know, it was, and you talked about Morrison. There was a lot of that, right? There's so much dramatic emotion.
Yeah. But, that and kind of Iggy Pop-ish a little bit.
Oh, way more Iggy, right? You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
There were other cool, you know, I mean, because you're in LA, I'm sure. And I think the way that you navigated that scene, there was, you know, a lot of like Hollywood elite. And I know that you had musical connections. Didn't you audition for Beck as well?
Yes.
How was that? Was that kind of weird?
Yeah, it was very surreal. I was about 27 years old, and I was working construction at the time.
Okay. And
he had seen me play drums in this band called The Movies, which was a fun band, a popular band in LA at the time. And so a friend of mine called me and said, "Hey, I passed your number on to Beck, and he might call you." And I was like, "Okay,
yeah,
we'll see if he does." And then I got a call, and I went and auditioned on drums, and I did like 3 auditions on drums, and then he asked me to switch over to guitar because he said, "You play guitar too, right?" I said, "Yeah, I'm not the best guitar player. I mean, I'm not a shredder. I'm pretty decent, but," and he said, "That's all right. I don't want a shredder. I just want, you know, somebody who can play cool stuff." And so I said, "Yeah, sure, I'll try." And then I did a couple auditions on guitar. And one day I was at my construction job, which I hated.
Yeah.
And I get a call from Beck, and he's asking me about a couple of the other guys that had been auditioning. And he said, "Do you like this drummer? You like that bass player?" And I said, "Well, I like this guy and this guy the best." And I noticed that me and the keyboard player had been coming to all the auditions, but all the other guys were sort of rotating. So I said, "Hey, Beck, is the keyboard player in the band?" And he goes, "Oh, yeah, he's in the band." And I said, "Am I in the band?" And he goes, yeah, you're in the band." And I just was like, "Oh, yeah." Floor. And I was like, "Oh shit." And then
so he had never told you?
No, he hadn't told me. I've been to 5 auditions, and
oh my God.
Yeah, he just dropped it on me like that. And then I went and told my construction boss. I said, "I got to quit. I'm going on tour." And so then I did a week, 5 days of like 8-hour-a-day rehearsals with the band. And there was a couple moments where I knew I was probably the weakest link in the band. And that might have been my self-doubt and everything, but
playing guitar
and percussion and backup vocals. And, you know, at one point I had learned this one song on rhythm guitar, and he said, "Hey, Charlie, take the solo."
Oh.
And I hadn't learned the solo, or I was not good enough to just wing a solo.
Yeah.
And I looked at him like, I don't know what I'm doing. and he had the same kind of guitar around his neck, and he just took the solo.
Really? Okay.
I thought, oh shit, I might have just lost the gig right there. You know, I don't know. But that 5th day, the Friday, I saw him, and I could tell he was acting a little bit like he wasn't telling me something. And then I got a call from his manager the next day, and he said, "Yeah, sorry, man, Beck's letting me go from the gig." And I had just been told that I was going to tour the whole world, play Saturday Night Live, Conan O'Brien, all these things, and get paid pretty nicely per week too. So when I got that phone call, it was a really crucial moment for me, because it was, as you can imagine, very crushing. It was about 2 weeks before Christmas. And after sort of, I wasn't like sitting and crying, but I was pretty damn close, you know. Yeah. I was like,
"Oh yeah,
I quit my job. I'm broke. And now it all just went away. Like as if I'd won $1 million in the casino, and they said, "Oh no, sorry, that was somebody else won that."
Oh God.
So, but the moment though, when I was at that crossroads, and I just said to myself, "You know what, man? That was like a really cool door that opened up, but it won't be the last one. And I'm going to make sure that it's not the last one. I'm going to keep pushing and, you know, try to make it somehow."
Yeah.
So,
I mean, seeing opportunity out of those, like the adverse situations.
Yeah. So that led to basically, you know, I was about 28 years old or 27. It took about two or 3 years before the next door opened up. And it was a great one, because and also my band had fallen apart too. My first band, Rex Aquarium, had fallen apart. And so now that fell apart. I don't have a band. I'm not going out with Beck. I'm broke. I had to ask my construction guy back for my job back.
Oh no.
I had to get on my knees to that guy and beg for my shit job back. That was about, I thought, is this the bottom?
Right.
Is this the lowest point? It's got to just get better from here.
Yeah.
And so then the next thing, I started writing solo songs, solo Charlie songs. And I started playing out with a few friends. And I met this guy named Michael Andrews, who was a composer for TV, for movies. And he had done like the score for Donnie, Darko and Freaks and Geeks and some other things. And my girlfriend at the time, who was also a musician, her name was Elaine Mandel.
Amazing. She
introduced me to Mike, and she was actually the one pushing Mike. You know, you should produce my boyfriend. You should produce my boyfriend. He's great. And I heard from her that he had said, oh, yeah, I'm sure he's great, you know.
Right.
But then he saw me play for the first time, and he was like, oh, maybe he is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
And, so he agreed to produce my first album. And from that moment on, I knew, like, once I got in with Michael Andrews, I was in a whole nother playing field, because he brought in, coincidentally, he brought in Joey Warnker, who used to play with Beck for like 10 years.
Okay.
Joey was Beck's drummer for like 10 years. And so Joey ends up playing on my first solo record.
I didn't realize he was the one on that record. Okay. That's cool.
Like 3 years after that whole Beck thing.
Wow.
I get Joey, and I had this guy named Gus Seyffert, who has since then gone on to play in Black Keys and Norah Jones, and now he's been playing with the Pink Floyd dude. I'm blanking on his name. Roger Waters.
Oh, Roger Waters. Wow. That's, man.
So,
yeah.
So I had this amazing bass player, amazing drummer, and Mike Andrews is an amazing electric guitar player and songwriter. So I did this album, which I was so proud of, my first solo album. When I finished that album, and we recorded it in 3 days. Like we did about 3 to 4 songs a day, live, live. And,
really? Okay, so not individually recorded, but you actually all the musicians play at same time, same room.
Yeah.
Okay.
The bass, drums, and Mike Andrews on electric guitar all in one room, and the bass player was playing stand up, and the drummer had a little wall thing around him.
Yeah.
But we were all. I was in the hallway. I was the only one that couldn't see them. We were playing live, and when I finished that album, I thought, "Holy shit! I'm never going to make something better than this." This is, I thought, holy, I could just die right now, you know, not to brag or anything, but that's how I felt. I was so proud of that album. And then right after finishing that, Mike, the producer and guitar player, he started working on this movie that was about to come out, or he started preparing for it.
Okay.
Hey, you know, if you have any questions, let me know. I'm just rambling now, but.
No, I love it, because I think you're leading up to a question that was asked on the chat. So this is
okay. I haven't even read this yet. I've been so just talking. But yeah, basically he said, "Hey, would you like to try to write for this movie?" And he said it's sort of based on a Johnny Cash type guy, Merle Haggard type dude, fictional character, and they need a bunch of songs written. And as soon as he said that, self-doubt came in, and I was like, I would love to, but I probably can't do it. That's what I was saying inside my head.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
In my head, I thought, you're not good enough. You can't do that.
Wow.
And he said, oh, and they're going to be paying $15,000 per song if you get it.
Oh, yeah.
I guess I could try to write for that.
Yeah, no kidding. Self-doubt went out the door.
Yeah, so as soon as he told me that number, and of course I was excited about it anyway. He did tell me in that same conversation, he said that the guy that they've, I think, logged in to play the lead actor is John C. Reilly. And I thought, oh shit, so John C. Reilly will be singing my songs? That's what you're saying? And he's like, yeah. God. And I was like, oh shit, okay. At that point in my life, I was working as a waiter. I also hated that job.
Typical LA job, right?
Waiting tables in a mom and pop pizza place. That, you know, I loved the restaurant and the owners were great, but I had a really hard time as a waiter.
Yeah.
You know, being talked to being talked down to if you serve their pizza, like the cook messed up their pizza and now it's your fault. That kind
right. Well, plus, you know, you were put on the planet to play music and perform. So
that's what I felt. That's what I felt. I was still not sure about it, but I thought, yeah, I should be doing music, not having people tip over my pizza tray, you know, and spill soda on it, you know, whatever.
Right.
One time I was going like this. I had 2 full trays in both of my hands, full trays, pizza and like beer and soda and stuff. And I go up to a table with like 10 people, and this little kid just goes, boop, and pushes, like pops one of the trays, and sodas just go all over the place, spill on the mom, spill on the table. And I had to, you know, and it's a packed restaurant, and I'm slammed. And that was a moment where, you know, I don't cry a lot, but that was a moment in the middle of that restaurant. I was ready to just start, you know.
And so you were there at the time when you got this opportunity to write for the John C. Reilly movie. Oh,
yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, as soon as I heard they were going to be paying that much money and how cool of a project it was, I'd be at my restaurant job, like with my little pad of, you know, taking their order paper, and I'd be walking around the restaurant like going, oh shit, he should say this and this, because I knew kind of the idea of what the song needed to say.
Okay.
They gave me sort of an outline for each song that they wanted. One of the songs they said, this song is sort of, the main character is in a hotel room that he's just trashed, and he's pissed drunk on whiskey, and he's, you know, his wife just left him and took the dog and the kids, and he's broke, and he's a washed up guy, and it's sort of like a big FU to the world kind of song. And they said the title, all we know is the title is called Guilty as Charged.
Yeah.
So I said, okay. And I went home and just started trying to write that song. But my mistake was that I thought, I hadn't read the whole script. So I thought this was sort of a serious movie.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know it was a comedy, like a ridiculous comedy.
Right.
So, and the second song, when I started writing that one, it was Duet. And I was trying to write a sincere, genuine love song, you know?
Yeah.
And they said, no, Charlie, you got to like make this as goofy and ridiculous and over the top as possible, but still make it seem real.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't mean to interrupt you. I was going to ask you about that one in particular. Well, Kyle Baltus in the chat was asking which songs you wrote for the movie.
Oh yeah, I wrote Guilty as Charged and Let's Duet.
Okay, so when they came, Let's Duet is such an iconic scene, right? When they sing that song, my favorite for sure, and it's racy and tongue in cheek, but you know, obviously the lyrics change and sort of even themselves out. Did they tell you when they said make it you know, comedic and ridiculous, did they say, you know, really push the limits sexuality wise? Or I mean, John C. Reilly, he can, okay.
Yeah, they said push it as far as you could, you know, double entendres and extremely sexual, but it still has to sort of be believable that it's on the radio at one point, like a radio hit.
Yeah.
So I was sitting around my house trying to think of every sexual term I could think of, you know, every slang term, everything. And I just started writing them down, you know, whether it was like doggy style or making out or boner or whatever. It didn't matter how stupid it was. Just put it on the paper and start figuring out how these things come together and how you can make it sort of seem like a ridiculous, and it has to be a duet. So it's 2 people,
right?
You know, so it's like, how are we going to have 2 people talking back and forth? That's a funny way with sexual energy, but it's sort of restrained because she's not his wife,
right?
You know, so they're not supposed to show that or something. and the first line that I came up with was, in my dreams, you're blowing me some kisses.
I love it. Oh my God.
And so I thought that was the first thing out of my head, and I thought, oh shit, that's fucking funny, man.
Yeah.
I gotta do a bunch more shit like that. So I started writing a bunch of lines, and then I got to the chorus, and I was a little stumped, and I called up my buddy Benji Hughes, who was an amazing songwriter, and I went over to his place. He was a little reluctant at first. He was like, "Oh man, I'm kind of busy. I don't know." And I had already gotten Guilty as Charged. So I said, "Hey man, I already got one song in this movie, and I feel like I can get this other one. Do you want to jump on board with me?" And he said, "All right, come on over." You know, and he looked at my verse that I'd written, and he said, "Here, let's take those verse chords, flip them backwards, and that's your chorus."
What? Really?
Pretty much.
Wow. Okay.
And at first I was like, are you sure? And he's like, trust me, I've been listening to country music all my life. You know, and I hadn't been listening to country music all my life. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll run with you on this. And he came up with part of that chorus melody. You know, I don't remember exactly how much we worked on the chorus together, but he was like, let's do it. Do, 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 do. Let's do it. And then I think we worked on the where it went down from there. But you know, we basically went on. I had verses worked out, and then I came to him, and we just totally dialed in the song. And song and Guilty as Charged, I had to try rewriting that song multiple times because they liked it, but then they wanted new lyrics, and especially Guilty as Charged. I rewrote that song like 5 times.
Wow.
Totally different lyrics. I initially, when I recorded the first demo, I teamed up with my buddy Gus Seyffert, who had played bass on my first album, and we produced this awesome demo. And then they said, oh, later on in the process, they said, you know what, we think we might have to change that song. And some of the other songwriters that are writing for this movie are submitting different versions. So I'd already heard, like, I went to the studio and met John C. Reilly when he was recording Guilty as Charged. And I was like, oh shit, this is done.
Yeah.
You know, I got this. And then 2 months later, I hear that other guys are submitting different versions of Guilty as Charged. And I was like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, this is the Beck feeling all over again.
Yeah, I was like, oh, no.
Oh, my God.
No, I'm going to lose this fucking thing. So I had to kick it into gear, and I rewrote that song like 5 times. I think it was the songwriter named Dan Byrne, who he and Mike Viola ended up getting like 15 songs in the movie. Wow. Just the two of them. Okay. They dominated. They were the kings of that soundtrack. And I would go into the recording studio sometimes, and they would just be chilling, hanging out in the studio. And anytime something new needed to be written, they were right there. They're like, oh, I got you right here. You know. So they were sort of like the masters, and I was the new fish. And but I still, and they were very friendly and very cool. I love those two dudes. But it was initially, for me, in the back of my mind, I was like, I gotta beat these dudes, man. I gotta beat them.
The hustle.
Yeah, I gotta hustle. And ultimately, the day that they shot the scene for Guilty Charged, I showed up on set, and the producer or somebody said to me, hey, Charlie, so they still haven't decided if they like your track or Dan Byrne's track. So they're gonna shoot both of them and decide later which one they're gonna use. And I was like, oh my God, the suspense is killing me.
Oh man.
And I watched them shoot, and then they only ended up shooting my version. Right. And the day was getting late, and they'd been there for many hours. And I said, are you guys gonna do the Dan Byrne version? They said, nah. we decided to go with yours.
Nice.
I was like, oh,
oh my God.
Oh, mama.
The stress. You're stressing me out thinking about it, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So
had you already done, because you had been writing commercial stuff, was that before or after Walk Hard?
Commercials came later.
Okay.
Walk Hard was sort of like the first real success that I had. You know, recording my first solo album was like my biggest personal success. Yeah. But having some sort of like notoriety or something, that was the first thing. And still probably the biggest thing in my career.
Put you on the entertainment world's sort of map. You know, I mean, I hate to do this in the middle of it, but I would love, because I saw the guitar sitting behind you. You know that I've got some favorite songs of yours, man. Would you mind doing a little live stuff? I know that Claudia was really excited to see you play some live music.
Yeah, sure.
Is that cool?
Yeah, I don't know if I can West because I'm pretty rusty.
Yeah, no worries.
Stuff, but
I'm gonna hop off screen and let you do your thing.
Okay. All right, I'll start with, this is sort of a little bit more of a upbeat rocker, but I was gonna start off mellow, but I'm just gonna kick right into it. So. When did you know you didn't love me? You didn't need me anymore. I've been replaced by a blockhead. Where once was a heart is nothing instead. Belief is dead. Belief is dead. And don't ever bring it up again. What can he give you? What can he do for you? If I compare it to the times I held you in my arms, just like 1,000 shooting stars, release my hand, release my hand, and don't ever bring it up again. I don't look for you, you don't wait for me, we don't share a home or anything, anything. When did you know you didn't love me?
Nice, man. Yeah, the crowd goes wild. I'm trying to give you more of a pandemic clap here. Yeah, I love it. Tell me about your music room here too. This is fun, man. You said it's like this is your music barn.
Oh yeah, this is my little rock and roll barn. It's sort of, I'm on a big honking computer, but over here is like a little keyboard, and I have some drums over to the left that you can't really see, but I got some, you know, a little bit of gear. I don't have a whole lot, but I got a little, I have a little recording set up, and I record demos and stuff. And ideally, I like to record the actual albums that I put out with a band.
Okay. So yeah. Does the band record in there, or do you do separate parts elsewhere and you do your parts?
No, I mean, this is kind of a new setup for me, but this is just where I put ideas down and write and stuff like that. So in the past, I usually would go to a friend's house that has a recording studio. Luckily in LA, there's so many musicians. If you know a lot of people, you don't necessarily have to record in a proper recording studio.
Right.
So many friends have just as good in their living room and bedroom and whatever. So
well, you're not in LA anymore though, right? You moved out?
Yeah, I moved out last year after living there pretty much my whole life. I moved up to the mountains. I'm now a mountain man.
Nice. Yeah, well, I'm dressed for it, right? The
Yeah.
what part of the mountains are you in?
I'm right in the center of California. There's a little mountain community next to a lake called Bass Lake, and I'm in this little tiny town called North Fork, California, which is hilarious. It's, you know, real small population. Yeah, mountain community, mountain vibes.
That's
Everybody's pretty funny up here. It's cool.
I'm sure. You know, I grew up in the mountains in Montana, right? So I know that when I was younger, I could not wait to get out of there and move to LA. That's all I wanted, right? From 17, 18 on, that's where I wanted to be. And all of my friends went, and I was the only guy that stuck around and didn't go. But most of my friends from LA are wanting to get out of there now too. And the allure of mountains in Montana sounds really good to me as I get older.
Yeah.
But you relocated to Portland for a while too. Your dad was reminding me that's something I should ask you about.
Yeah, when I was about 16, I got kicked out of my school in LA, and my dad said, "Hey, why don't you come up to Portland? They got a great public school up here." And so I went to Lincoln High School in downtown Portland,
Right.
and I did my last 2 years of high school up there, and it was great.
You mentioned getting kicked out. Were you a troubled kid?
No, I was just getting into, you know, in my early teens, I was just starting to, I don't want to put all the blame on my buddies, but some of my buddies were kind of like influencing me to do some silly things.
Yeah.
You know, me and one of my best friends at the time, when we were like 14, we put firecrackers in mailboxes and actually got arrested. We spent the night in the sheriff's station, and there was that. And then at 15 or 16, I got in trouble with my school for smoking weed for like the first time, and I got busted. And it was a private school, and they were pretty strict. And, you know, they were at that time, that school, like I remember a kid came to school wearing a Anthrax t-shirt or something with a skeleton holding like a head or something, and he got sent home.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
Like you gotta go put something else on.
Oh my God. You know, it's funny to think about the rite of passage as a musician, you know, to think about the stuff that you got in trouble for, how innocuous that was compared to, you know, what, you know, people are being busted for now. But so
not to rag on that school too much, but, you know, also the first song that I was ever going to perform live that I can remember, I really wanted to sing at age 12 or something, Sunday Bloody Sunday, in front of my school at like the school, you know, music battle of the bands or something.
Yeah.
And one of the power players at the school said she hadn't even heard the song. She just was like, the title,
Wow.
Nope, Sunday Bloody Sunday, I don't think so.
That's crazy. You could be making statements, you know?
Yeah, and you know, I got caused a little bit of a stink at my school about it, and eventually they let me sing that song in front of like 15 of my same age group peers, but not in front of the whole school or something, you know. Anyway, I just ramble on about stupid shit sometimes, but
no, well, I was thinking about those people, you know, those 15 that got to see you sing Sunday Bloody Sunday. They're still telling this story today. I remember when the famous Charlie WADHAMS was, you know, he got to sing that U2 cover. So for the move to Portland, was the move a good thing for you to kind of set you straight?
Well, not to set me straight, but yeah, it was a great move. It was a wonderful change of environment, where they had, you know, for the first time it snowed on my house, and I'd never experienced anything like that. And and being in a public school, coming from a private school all my childhood, all of a sudden it was like every 80s movie I'd ever seen. I swear, you know, stuff that never happened in my private school was actually happening. Like kids sleeping in class. Nope, that doesn't happen in my private school. You know, but there were, you know, and like the first 2 weeks I was there, food fight broke out in the cafeteria. And I was like, is this for real?
You got to experience real life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Food fight and seniors beating up on freshmen and stuff. I was like, whoa, dude, this is pretty trippy.
Yeah. No, it's like the Breakfast Club. You just got to, and at that point, you've been playing some music, right? You talked about, yes, you were 15. So you were,
no, actually when I moved to Portland, that's when I first started writing my first songs.
Wow. Okay. Nice.
Yeah, because my dad showed me some of the basic chords at about 15, something like that. And so I wrote some really bad songs.
Well,
like teenage drama to the extreme.
Yeah.
You know, oh, why won't you come back to me? You know, and I wrote a lot of those songs in my later years too. Just a little bit more fine-tuned.
Well, because you had the wisdom behind you, you know, the wisdom of the heartache and loss. I'll tell you, you know, you talked about the influence that your dad had on you. I have felt like your dad is my brother for a long time. You know, to me, he's family, man, through the biggest highs and the biggest lows. You know, your pop has been with me. I saw that he's in the chat right here. So it's nice to see you, Phil. Thank you for being here. And your dad's biggest fan, Kayvon Zahedi, is here too. He's going to be a guest on my show soon, which is going to be fun. But
nice.
But your dad, it's really amazing because he speaks with such reverence, you know, about you and your brother and your sis. He's always been really connected emotionally, right? I mean, you know, some dads, they're afraid to let that guard down. They've got to be this tough, rough guy. Bill's got, you know, that masculinity, but too, he's really connected emotionally. And I would bet at that point in time in high school, when you came out to see him, I bet it was really healthy for you to get that exposure too, to somebody that can be.
Yeah. It was because he had recently divorced, not from my mom. But anyway, he had divorced. He was a newly single dude on the scene in Portland. He was living by himself in this cute little 2-story house. And he said, Charlie, I got a 2-bedroom, you know, and I was so excited to go live with my dad. Because I was kind of sick of everything going on in my life at the time. And just to live alone with my dad and see what the rest of my teenage years had for me, you know, I was excited about it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a special little period of time.
He's saying so too in the chat, which is nice. Man, it's crazy during the pandemic. I feel like, you know, I've seen your dad less and less. And the only time I get to see him is we're out on tour, you know, passing each other in the hallway in a green room or something. But have you gotten to play with your dad much on stage?
A little bit. Yeah. We've played a handful of shows where I've opened up for him. He may have even opened up for me, I think once or twice. But yeah, we've had some really fun gigs together, some really stripped down. And then I've played 1 or 2 shows with him with Animotion.
Yeah.
You know, little one-offs. I did one, like the first one I did, I think was opening for Berlin and Psychedelic Furs. And I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, buddy. The first time I got to meet you for that gig.
Oh yeah.
At the Roseland in Portland. Yep. And you know, it's fun because I know that at that point too, your dad had, you know, he was excited because his kids were these musicians, you know, up and comers. But now it's amazing to talk to your dad about how much respect he has for you as a songwriter. You know, you've matured musically and I think as a man, you know, in your life. So it's got to feel really good to know that you've made a name for yourself. You know, that you kind of, it's as a father with a musician, as a son, I know for me, it's really important for my son to feel like he's made a name for himself without his dad's tutelage. Right.
Yeah.
And it's gotta be tough. Right. I mean,
I always sort of kept that, that my dad was who he was and who he is and everything. I would always sort of have that in my back pocket. And sometimes it would be fun to just pull that out at a party with guys that I've known for a year or something and be like, oh yeah, by the way, my dad was a 80s, you know, hit dude. And they're like, what?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, let me ask you that. That's funny you think about it, because now, I mean, the 80s has made this resurgence, right? It's been a big thing for the last decade.
Yeah.
And the songs are everywhere. So when you walk into a grocery store and you hear Obsession and playing over the loudspeaker, are you telling the cashier at the checker, like, hey, this is my dad, right? Do you do any of that?
I mean, I'm sure I have.
Yeah.
But
I do it.
Not usually. Usually it's just like if I'm with someone. If I'm with someone I know and I'm in Kmart or something.
Yeah.
Then I'll be like, oh shit, it's my dad.
Yeah, no, that's a good thing. You think my pop made 2 cents off that just now, right? So
yeah.
Man, I gotta say, it's fun to see this shift in Charlie Wadhams too as a dad, right? How has that affected you as a musician, as a as somebody like?
It's been huge.
Yeah.
Up to the point of getting married and having a kid, I had had some very nice relationships, but ultimately they all sort of came crashing down, and it supplied me with a lot of material for heartbreaks and stuff. You know, I found that that stuff would just pour out of me. Easy. Yeah. It was like the easiest song for me to write.
Right.
But then at some point I got pretty bored with writing those songs. And, you know, after I got into my current marriage and had a kid, I was like, oh shit. Now I'm like in a happy relationship with a child. Now I got to figure out what I'm going to write about.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Happy songs don't sell records, right?
Yeah. And I had written a few songs that weren't about breakups or things like that, but it seemed like I had a lot of those. Mm-hmm. So I had to kind of think about what was, you know, sort of like what we were discussing earlier in the conversation about being honest lyrically with myself and also writing something good. You know, how do you write something honest to yourself and it's also really good?
Yeah.
So I'm still trying to figure that out. But now, you know, I write stuff. There's love songs always sort of creep in. You know, even if you're trying to write about the current climate out there in the world or something, somehow some relationship is going to creep into that song somehow, whether it's your mom or your dad, your relationship with your mom or your dad, or your love for your current wife or your, you know, whoever. It seems like love sort of always creeps in. You can't get away from it.
For you, you're a romantic, right? So
yeah.
I think, you know, having that focus is really important for somebody, you know, because I think whether you've had heartache or, well, everybody's had heartache, right? But the hope is that, you know, from heartache comes that wisdom and the appreciation for the really good times and the love. So as you're writing material, maybe you can write about lost love and that kind of thing, but you can also talk about the experience that you had that can be honored and treasured and sort of revered as well, right? So
yeah,
I hear a lot of that in your writing. I always have. You did some stuff when you mentioned Eleni Mandel earlier, and I remember seeing you play with her at Holocene, I think here in Portland with or B Complex, one of those two. Your dad had told me about Eleni and went out to see you guys play. And I saw you in a completely different light. You know, this is like the first time that I saw you play in that duet where you had two powerful songwriters together performing. And I thought this is going to be the next big thing. I could totally see it. The songs were there, the hooks were there, and there was there was a lot of respectful communication on stage, right? You could tell that even if nobody knew that there was a romantic connection there, that there was a real great partnership in songwriting. And do you feel like having to be like a solo songwriter? Do you feel like maybe the desire to have another partner in writing? Or is that something that you've been there, you've done it, and you've moved on?
No, I actually like writing alone. I've written with a handful of other people, probably less than 10, but,
Okay.
and some people it's easier than others. Some people you can sit in a room and go back and bounce ideas back and forth and feel like nobody agree that, you know, the two of you just can't come to an agreement on what is right for the song. And so nothing ends up getting done.
Yeah.
Or you just don't have the same kind of style, right? You know, like you're just like from two different planets or something.
Yeah.
Sometimes people naturally, organically meet out somewhere and talk about getting together to write. And sometimes people get put together, you know,
Right.
somebody pairs you with someone else.
Yeah.
And then it's like you're on a blind date with another songwriter. And sometimes that doesn't work out so great. But no, to answer your question, I really enjoy just hammering it out by myself and pushing myself to make the song as great as possible. Of course, sometimes it takes an outside voice to go, hey, you know, you don't have a chorus in that song yet. And I'll go, oh shit, did I just think that song was done and it doesn't even have a chorus or a bridge or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
But sometimes songs don't need the standard verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, or whatever format you're into.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of, I would imagine that's going to be nice to be an independent artist where you don't have record labels that are forcing you to do the formulaic thing to sell records, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I'll play you a song. My wife was playing some Lee Hazelwood today, and I one of the only cover songs that I like to play is a Lee Hazelwood song.
Oh, yeah. I'd love to hear you play some more stuff here. That'd be great.
Sure.
All right. Here's Charlie Wadhams.
All right. Standing on a corner with a raggedy old suitcase by my side, waiting for a Greyhound bus to come along so I can hook a ride. Gonna go as far as $14 will take a fool like me. Gotta find a place where I can hide, you know I must forget Marie. Marie, I'm standing on the corner feeling raindrops race tears down my face. Crying loses tears and knowing that I never should have run the race. Never should have let her build a house of love, it's coming down on me. Gotta find a place where I can hide, you know I must forget Marie. Marie, I'm standing on the corner with a raggedy old suitcase by my side, waiting for a Greyhound bus to come along so I can hook a ride. You know, that song doesn't have a normal structure. It's kind of a weird little verse, I guess a chorus, kind of.
Yeah. Well, yeah, standing on the corner, that hook in the chorus for sure. But I do hear how it's different than the normal formulaic.
Yeah.
Man, your voice is so good, man. I love hearing that. Yeah. You know, before we wrap this, I really would love to hear another Charlie Wadhams song if you're cool with it. But before we do, let me just ask you, you had a song or you had an album out this last year and you've been up at the, this place up in the mountains for a year. How has that been for songwriting? Do you feel like you're inspired in a different way to be up in the remote areas?
Yeah, I am. And also I got we have a piano, a nice tuned piano in our place, which I never had that before. I've always had like kind of crappy synthesizers and stuff, but to have a real piano in the living room is so inspiring. I just want to sit on that thing and write as much as possible. So I've been mostly writing on piano these days, which I'm a crappy ass piano player. So they're like hot cross buns, real simple but you know, it doesn't quite sound that bad. But I'm actually really happy with the stuff that's coming out of me with the piano.
Okay.
So that's one way that it's different. But also, you know, the whole environment is so different up here. So I'm definitely inspired in so many different ways, and I'm sure on my next album you'll hear it.
I'm looking forward to that. How aside from going to charliewadhams.com, how else can somebody find out about stuff that's forthcoming? Do you maintain social media stuff at all?
Not a whole lot, but if you go on YouTube or Spotify or any of the, you know, listening platforms that people listen to it, my music is pretty much out there on all of those. So you just type in my name and you can hear any of my latest stuff.
Okay. That's I do encourage you guys, if you hadn't been hip to Charlie's stuff before, definitely get out there and get it. Claudia, she's over in Germany. I know that she'll be scouring YouTube looking for you. If you're cool with it, would you mind wrapping up with another Charlie WADHAMS song? Would that be cool?
Yeah, sure. I'll play one. This one's actually on the EP that I did with Priscilla Ahn.
Okay.
This is a song that I wrote, and she kind of sang along with me on it.
Right on.
So it goes like this. It's called I Pretend.
Okay.
I watched the whole.
I was waiting for that last chord, man. That is so beautiful. Wow, that's a stunning love song, man. It really, what a pleasure to get to see and hear you again. I miss you, you know?
Great to see you, and thanks everybody for tuning in.
It has been great. You know, you've got a lot of fans out there. Kayvon's ahead. He's decades old fan of your pop, and I know he's a big fan of Charlie WADHAMS too. Bill WADHAMS, thank you for being out there and chiming in. So we've got oh, look at that. He said he'll see you in North Fork next week. So he's gonna come visit, huh?
Cool. Awesome.
That's great, man. You're gonna see him a lot sooner than I will. But do me a favor, hug your dad for me then, and hopefully he can give you a squeeze for me too. Guys, if you're still watching this and you haven't yet checked out charliewadhams.com, there's a lot of really good stuff out there. Some cool videos that he's done too with some of his songwriting partners. So you can check that out. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to this channel. I need you to, because I'm almost at that 1,000 mark, and I've got a lot of good stuff coming up. So
another little thing. I produced a very close friend of mine's album, and it came out just like a month ago. His name is Brian Canning, and the album is called Old Flames. It's a beautiful, beautiful record. So if you want to check that out, just type in Brian Canning on whatever. Yeah, it's very nice.
Very good. All right. I appreciate that. Brian Canning, Old Flame.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. And Charlie WADHAMS, man, thank you again. Folks, thanks you for watching. I'll be back here again on Monday with Christian Celeron. My thanks to Charlie WADHAMS. Thanks for all of you guys chatting. I saw Mike Klaus there. And Claudia, thanks again for being here. Game on. Charlie WADHAMS.
Thank you, everybody.
I love you, my friend. Thanks so much, and have a beautiful weekend.